evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 7 o'clock main news. In tonight's headlines, the Arab ministerial delegation discusses the latest developments in Iraq with His Excellency the Iraqi President. Iraq's parliament approves Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi's nominees for 2 critical security posts in his government, ending more than a month-long deadlock. Many Syrian refugees in Turkey begin returning home to the mainly Kurdish Syrian town of Kobani after Turkey opened its border. And violence breaks out between pro-democracy protesters and Hong Kong police despite plans to hold talks with the government later in the week. His Highness the Emir Sheikh Sabah Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah received this morning at Sif Palace His Highness the Crown Prince Sheikh Nawaf Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah. His Highness the Emir then received the National Assembly Speaker Marzouk Ali Al Ghanem. His Highness the Emir also received His Highness Sheikh Jaber Al Mbarak Al Hamad Al Sabah, the Prime Minister. Later on, His Highness the Emir received the Chairman of the State Audit Bureau, Abdulaziz Yusuf Al Adsani, who presented His Highness with reports on the Bureau's revision of the state budget and final accounts of the fiscal year 2013-2014. His Highness the Emir Sheikh Sabah Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah sent a congratulatory cable to the chairman of Al Qadisiyah Sports Club, Sheikh Khalid Fahd Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah, on the occasion of winning the 2014 Asian Football Confederation Cup. In his cable, His Highness the Emir praised this achievement and hailed the efforts exerted by the club's officials and players to raise high the flag of Kuwait at regional and international sports events, wishing them more success. His Highness the Crown Prince Sheikh Nawaf Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah sent a congratulatory cable to the chairman of Al Qadisiyah Sports Club, Sheikh Khalid Fahd Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah, on the occasion of winning the 2014 Asian Football Confederation Cup. His Highness Sheikh Jaber Al Mbarak Al Hamad Al Sabah, the Prime Minister, also sent a similar cable. His Highness the Emir Sheikh Sabah Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah received a congratulatory cable from the GCC Ministers of Culture on the conclusion of their 20th meeting held in Kuwait. In their cables, the ministers congratulated His Highness the Emir Sheikh Sabah Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah on the occasion of naming Kuwait a humanitarian centre and His Highness the Emir a humanitarian leader by the UN, stressing that this unprecedented gesture reflects the solid and honourable stances of the State of Kuwait on the humanitarian and development levels. They also expressed gratitude to His Highness the Emir for the warm welcome and hospitality accorded to them during their stay in Kuwait, wishing His Highness good health and Kuwait further prosperity under his wise leadership. His Highness the Crown Prince Sheikh Nawaf Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah received this morning at his Sif Palace Diwan the National Assembly Speaker Marzouk Ali Al Ghanem. His Highness the Crown Prince then received His Highness Sheikh Jaber Al Mbarak Al Hamad Al Sabah, the Prime Minister. Later on, His Highness the Crown Prince received the Deputy Premier, Minister of Interior and Acting Minister of Awqaf and Islamic Affairs, Sheikh Mohammed Al Khalid Al Hamad Al Sabah. His Highness the Crown Prince also received the Deputy Premier and Minister of Defence, Sheikh Khalid Jarrah Al Sabah. His Highness the Crown Prince later received the Chairman of the State Audit Bureau, Abdulaziz Yusuf Al-Adsani. His Highness the Crown Prince then received the Minister of Information and Minister of State for Youth Affairs, Sheikh Salman Sabah al-Salim Al-Hamoud al-Sabah. Finally, His Highness the Crown Prince received the Minister of State for Cabinet Affairs and Acting Minister of Justice, Sheikh Mohammed Abdullah Mubarak al-Sabah. National Assembly Speaker Marzouk Ali Ghanem met with the Chairman of the State Audit Bureau, Abdulaziz Yusuf Al-Adsani, who presented him with a report on the Bureau's revision of the state budget and final accounts of the fiscal year 2013-2014. The National Assembly Speaker also received the Governor of Hawali, retired First Lieutenant General Sheikh Ahmed Nawaf Al-Ahmed Al-Sabah, as well as the Capital Governor, retired Lieutenant General Thabit Al-Mhenna. The First Deputy Premier and Foreign Minister Sheikh Sabah Al-Khalid Al-Hamad Al-Sabah arrived in Baghdad today on top of an Arab ministerial delegation. The delegation comprises the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Cooperation of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania, Ahmed Ould Taghoudi, whose country chairs the current session of the Arab League, in addition to the Arab League Secretary General Dr. Nabil Al-Arabi. The delegation went with the Iraqi Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi, where they discussed the latest developments in Iraq and means of providing support for the brotherly country in confronting terrorism. The Arab ministerial delegation, headed by the First Deputy Premier and Foreign Minister Sheikh Sabah Al-Khalid Al-Hamad Al-Sabah, affirmed the Arab support to Iraq in its fight against terrorism that threatens the whole region. This came during a meeting between the delegation and the Iraqi Foreign Minister, Dr. Ibrahim Al-Jafari, where they discussed the latest developments in Iraq on all levels. The meeting was attended by the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Cooperation of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania, Ahmed Ould Taghoudi, the Arab League Secretary General, Dr. Nabil Al-Arabi, and a host of Arab League officials. The First Deputy Premier and Foreign Minister Sheikh Sabah Al-Khalid Al-Hamad Al-Sabah said forces of the US-led coalition striking posts of the IS in Iraq are mainly Arab, noting that the terrorist group poses a threat not only to Iraq but to the whole region. Sheikh Sabah Al-Khalid made this statement in a press conference with his Iraqi counterpart Ibrahim Al-Jafari following talks by a visiting Arab ministerial delegation led by the Kuwaiti Minister with senior Iraqi officials. Sheikh Sabah Al-Khalid told the conference that this visit as a sign of support and solidarity with Iraq, whose security and stability is a pillar for the region's stability. For his part, the Iraqi Foreign Minister highlighted that Baghdad did not ask for any Arab or foreign troops on Iraqi soil, but it demanded arming its security forces and training them. On bilateral ties, Al-Jafari expressed readiness to promote these relations, pointing out that solving the problems facing his country, is not only the responsibility of Iraq, but the entire Arab world. Meanwhile, Al-Arabi called for a comprehensive ideological, intellectual and economic confrontation with terrorism and the IS, not just through military power. The Arab ministerial delegation, headed by the First Deputy Premier and Foreign Minister Sheikh Sabah Al-Khalid Al-Hamad Al-Sabah, met today with His Excellency the President of Iraq, Dr. Fuad Ma'soom. The delegation discussed with the President means of supporting the Iraqi government in its fight against terrorism that threatens the Arab country and the region. The meeting was attended by the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Cooperation of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania, Ahmed Ould Taghoudi, the Arab League Secretary General, Dr. Nabil Al-Arabi, and a host of Arab League officials. Under the patronage of the First Deputy Premier and Minister of Foreign Affairs, Sheikh Sabah Al-Khalid Al-Hamad Al-Sabah, the National Council for Culture, Arts and Letters held a ceremony to inaugurate the new Salmiya Theatre and honour creative individuals from the 6 Gulf Cooperation Council states. The meeting coincided with the conclusion of the 20th meeting of the GCC Ministers of Culture, hosted by the State of Kuwait. Sarah Glubb was at the new theatre with this report.
The National Council for Culture, Arts and Letters, the NCCAL, opened the much-anticipated Salmiya Theatre under the patronage and the attendance of the First Deputy Premier and Minister of Foreign Affairs, Sheikh Sabah Al-Khalid Al-Hamad Al-Sabah.
This evening, we celebrate the opening of the newest cultural stage in Kuwait, that is the Salmiya Theatre, which was built to keep up with the latest technologies. This will be the first step towards renovating other cultural centers in Kuwait, and that also will be followed by new strategies to develop culture in the country, which is supported by His Highness the Emir Sheikh Sabah Al-Ahmad Al-Jaber Al-Sabah, His Highness the Crown Prince Sheikh Nawaf Al-Ahmad Al-Jaber Al-Sabah, and His Highness the Prime Minister. It's a great pleasure to be joined today by First Deputy Premier and Foreign Minister Sheikh Sabah Al-Khalid Al-Hamad Al-Sabah, despite all the important commitments he has, which is reflective of the great keenness of the political leadership on developing culture, arts and literature to further improve the development of the society.
The lavish event was attended by the Minister of Information, Minister of State for Youth Affairs, and the Chairman of the NCCAL, Sheikh Salman Sabah Al-Salim Al-Hamoud Al-Sabah, Secretary General of the Gulf Cooperation Council, or GCC, Dr. Abdul Latif Al-Zayani, and GCC cultural ministers, as well as diplomats and distinguished guests.
This meeting, hosted by Kuwait, witnesses the honoring of a host of intellectuals from GCC states who represented their countries and the GCC in a dignified way. This honoring coincides with the inauguration of Salmiya Theatre, which will contribute massively to the cultural circle in Kuwait. When we celebrate these intellectuals, we celebrate their works and contributions that enlightened minds and put the GCC on the cultural map of the Arab world. I would also like to thank Their Highnesses and Excellencies, the GCC Ministers of Culture, for their keenness on honoring such individuals and the endless support they provide for the creative minds.
During the ceremony, creative personalities from the 6 GCC states were honored. The event also came a day after the grand opening of the National Library of Kuwait, which was held under the patronage and attendance of His Highness Sheikh Jaber Al-Mubarak Al-Hamad Al-Sabah, the Prime Minister. Under the patronage of the First Deputy Premier and Minister of Foreign Affairs, Sheikh Sabah Al-Khalid Al-Hamad Al-Sabah, and with the presence and attendance of senior officials and ministers from the GCC, as well as diplomats and distinguished guests, the National Council for Culture, Arts and Letters held this elegant and brimming ceremony to mark and celebrate the opening of the new and long-awaited Salmiya Theatre, and to honor creative individuals from all over the GCC region. From the new Salmiya Theatre, this is Sarah Gleb reporting for English News.
An Arab League chief-headed delegation arrived in Baghdad today to show support to Iraq in its fight against Islamic State militants. The delegation of the Pan-Arab Organization is scheduled to meet with the Iraqi president and senior officials to discuss the security situation in the country. The meeting comes as Iraqi MPs have approved new defense and interior ministers, completing a unity government that is battling the spread of IS militants. Our reporter Nadia Ali has more on this.
Iraqi lawmakers approved Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi's remaining cabinet nominees, including the critical defense and interior portfolios, completing the formation of a government that will strive to push the IS extremist group out of the sprawling territory it has seized in recent months. Mohammed Salim al-Ghadban, a nominee for Interior Minister, and Khalid al-Ubaidi, a nominee for Defense Minister, won majority of votes at the Council of Representatives. Hoysher Zebari, a Kurdish politician and Iraq's long-serving foreign minister, was named Minister of Finance, having previously been voted in as Deputy Prime Minister. The Iraqi parliament approved the majority of the cabinet on September 8th, ushering in Abadi's term as Prime Minister, but he asked for delay to fill posts, including the Security Ministry. Abadi's initial candidates were then voted down by MPs, leaving the key positions unfilled. Abbadi faced major international pressure, especially from the United States, to form an inclusive government that could unite Iraq's sharply divided religious and ethnic communities. Control over the two powerful security ministries has long been a source of tension among Iraq's feuding political factions. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry called the election of the two powerful security ministers as a very positive step forward in the fight against the IS terrorist group. U.S. Vice President Joe Biden spoke yesterday with al-Abbadi by phone and congratulated him on the new ministers. The U.S. Vice President and al-Abbadi also discussed the work ahead, including steps to rebuild Iraq's security forces and enlist all Iraqi communities in the fight against the IS militants. According to Ayad al-Malla, a political analyst and writer, the completion of the Iraqi government is a positive step. However, the real challenge is shaping the country's security and strategic plans.
To the town of Kobani to fight against IS militants after Turkey opened its border for them on Wednesday. Turkish Prime Minister Ahmet Davutoglu said that Turkey will not allow its citizens to cross the border to fight militants in Syria and that the principle also applies to foreign fighters. Activists said today that Kurdish fighters have been able to halt the advance of the militant group in Kobani, where the US-led coalition has been carrying out airstrikes for more than 2 weeks. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas said new steps will be Israeli measures on the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the incursions of Jewish settlers to the Holy Mosque by pursuing new legal measures against Israel on an international level. More in the following report by Fatma Abdul Karim from Ramallah.
President Mahmoud Abbas chaired a meeting with his own Fatah members yesterday and announced that he is starting legal procedures against Israel at the different international platforms for the continuous incursions of extremist Jewish settler groups and the Israeli-imposed restrictions on Palestinian worshippers in Al-Aqsa Mosque.
We will not allow the settler groups to violate Al-Aqsa Mosque. We are now taking the needed legal measures on the international level in this matter.
The Palestinians have warned that resorting to the UN organizations and more international tribunals could be the only option to stop the Israeli aggression against Palestinians.
Now the President Mahmoud Abbas wants to apply to the Security Council case about the situation here in Palestine, especially what's happening in Jerusalem and the Al-Aqsa Mosque. The idea here that we want to give time for the world to stop the occupation, for the United Nations to speak something about the situation here.
The situation in the Holy Aqsa Mosque has witnessed a rising tension, particularly since 2 weeks during the Jewish holidays, where the Israeli authorities used it as a pretext to impose further restrictions that banned Palestinians from accessing Al-Aqsa Mosque compound. Palestinians have been warning that the space and time division of Al-Aqsa Mosque could deteriorate the situation seriously, especially if the world remains silent about the Israeli violations. Fatma Abdul Karim, Kuwait TV, Ramallah, Palestine.
More than 600 medics from East Africa have been sent to support hospitals in Ebola-affected areas this week after the African Union made a plea for its members to send more medical staff. The new arrivals are joining medical workers at an Ebola treatment unit run by the International Medical Corps. Meanwhile, US President Barack Obama urged Americans to avoid hysteria over Ebola and played down the idea of travel bans from Ebola-ravaged countries in West Africa, explaining that restrictions could make things worse. Lawmakers have urged Obama to bar people from Liberia, Sierra Leone and Guinea from entering the United States. Obama said he isn't opposed to travel bans, but in his weekly address made it clear that he isn't leaning towards them. Police and pro-democracy protesters clashed in the Mong Kok district of Hong Kong earlier today. It was the second night in a row that clashes took place in the district. Some protesters attempted to break through barriers at an intersection, prompting police to bring in reinforcements. Talks between the Hong Kong government and the student leaders of the protest are expected to take place on Tuesday. Supporters of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Hindu Nationalist Party are today celebrating their party's gains in 2 Indian state elections, even as the counting of votes was still underway. Early trends showed that the Bharatiya Janata Party, or the BJP, was leading in the western Indian state of Maharashtra and northern Haryana state and looked set to form the government in both states currently ruled by the Congress Party. The state elections were largely seen as a test of whether Modi's popularity would translate to votes favouring his party. A local BJP leader declared that under the leadership of the BJP, a mini Modi government will be formed in the Maharashtra should victory be with them. Elections in the 2 states had taken place on October 15th. And moving to local financial news, the main indices of the Kuwait Stock Exchange settled in the red zone upon closing today's session. The weighted index put on 3.52 points, settling at 484.17 points. Meanwhile, the price index lost 22.49 points to close at 7,387.85 points, and the KSX 15 index lost 14.59 points to settle at 1,180.99 points. The number of trades amounted to 5,360 transactions worth 24.9 million Kuwaiti dinars, with 277.4 million shares changing hands. For a chance to see our reports again, please visit our YouTube channel at MOI Kuwait News. And to recap tonight's news, here are the headlines once again. The Arab ministerial delegation discusses the latest developments in Iraq with His Excellency the Iraqi President. Iraq's parliament approves Prime Minister Haider Abadi's nominees for 2 critical security posts in his government, ending more than a month-long deadlock. Many Syrian refugees in Turkey begin returning home to the Kurdish, mainly Kurdish Syrian town of Kobani after Turkey opened its border. And violence breaks out between pro-democracy protesters and Hong Kong police, despite plans to hold talks with the government later in the week. Thank you for joining us.